I think we're live. Hopefully you can see this good because I'm going to get ready to get started. I'm kind of excited to work on this project today. Turning on my tablet so that I can see any comments. And let me see, there's one more thing I need to see if I can comment. I'm going to be using my new, and here they are, my new turquoise Irish. Why do I keep saying that? Irish. Turquoise iris brushes today. And I've got those on sale in my Etsy store. 10% off. I've not used them yet. They're brand new. I'm excited. I love this little case. Check this out. Just, it could twist way up there if your brushes were really short, but that would mash the tops of them. So be careful with that if you get some. But I love having this little carrying case. And they'll stand in here. I wanted to talk a second about Trinket boxes. I think I've posted before about this old candy box that I got at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. And I just keep old little trinkets in here. This reminds me of my grandmother for some reason. Just keeping old stuff. There's some buttons and some lace. And here's a crystal, I think from a trip to Arkansas. Some washi tape and just some stuff. And excuse me if I sneeze a lot. My nose is running this morning. Anyway, so I love having little trinket boxes like that. And I have some cigar boxes that my daughter Mandy bought me years ago at a flea market. And so I'm like, well, I may as well use one of these cigar boxes for a trinket box. And I painted this one the other day on a, what do you call that, like a time-lapse video. I shared that here. It's stuck to my paper down here. On a time-lapse video, I put some of this stuff is we're going to put today, but I put the black gesso all over the, the upper and the side surfaces. The inside is just, well, it's probably glued shut. A cigar box. This was a Monte Cristo Classic Collection cigar, and I just glued some keys and stuff to it and some gears and things while I was playing one day with my granddaughter while she was painting a shoebox on the other side of the table. So I started with that. I'm having a hard time with the allergy season here. So all of these things are already glued down, and they're glued down with matte medium. And then when I was digging in my trinket box earlier, I'm like, oh, I love these flowers. I wish there were some. There were only 2 in there. So I went and found this little bouquet of flowers in my scrapbook and stuff. So I'm going to just use these scissors. Never do this. It can dull your scissors, but these aren't the greatest scissors ever anyway. So I'm going to cut one off of there because you know how we should do things in 3s. I don't know whether I'm going to use this. Found it in my trinket box too and just grabbed one out. There were several in there. This one says, your greatest creation is always going to be your life story. How cool is that? I'll probably put this on. And even though this is like engraved in there a little bit, I'm afraid if I paint over it that it's gonna hide all those words, and then it'll just be a plate down there that says nothing, which I could come back and paint something. But what I think I'm gonna do is save this until the very end and then put it on the painted piece. So what I want to do real quick right now, and I'm not going to use one of my turquoise Irish brushes for this, is I'm going to grab this old one that I was already used for something else. And I glue with matte medium. And this happens to be the one I have sitting here, so that's the one I'm going to use. And these flowers you glue down just as if they were, and I have wood elements on here and metal elements on here. But let's think about where they should go. I wish I wouldn't have put this stuff in here already, and I like that gear showing that I have on top of that wood thing. But let's see. I still want everything to sort of come out this way. And for the things that I put on there already to show, but let's see. It's cool that it's 3 different sizes of flower as well. No, I think it needs to either go down here or right here at the corner, which is going to cover up part of that. I like that. Y'all like that? That's what we're going to go with. Morning, Laura. Thank you for joining me. I don't know why I love having little places to hide stuff. So I'm going to hide stuff in this cigar box, as if it won't be at that point obvious that it's fixed up. So there's probably stuff hidden in it, but that's okay, right? Nobody's going to break in and want my collection of buttons and gears, I don't think. So it doesn't have to be flat down on there. I mean, you know, we're kind of wanting all this to be layered and all that kind of stuff. This isn't going to dry as fast. I could have done this part ahead of time, but like I said, just when I got out that other Trinket box earlier, I'm like, oh, look at that. Maybe I should put some flowers. But we can work on some of these other areas while those are drying. I'm going to hit them with this heat gun because I can't help myself. I love to play with the heat gun. And maybe that'll start them to setting up, because we're going to paint over these just as if they were part of the cigar box or part of the metal or something else on there. You do have to be careful with your heat gun, especially if you're using a powerful one. This is not a powerful one. This is one that you can get at Hobby Lobby or on Amazon or whatever for probably 20 bucks. But it's really good for embossing is what I bought this one for originally. But it doesn't get too hot. But this, the green flower is sort of, not plasticky, but it's probably got plastic stuff in it. These two are kind of paper, so I don't worry as much about them, but this one could melt and singe, and don't ask me how I know that. I'm not drying it all the way, but I figure if it's heated up, it will dry a little bit faster. Tell you something else that happened yesterday. I think, no, day before yesterday. And here's my new brushes. I've never even used them, so I'm excited to get them dirty today. They're very thick compared to like the cheap brushes that I was using a minute ago. I've already got that one stuck in the water. Here's another one. Like this compared to this, there's no comparison. And this actually is not one of the El Cheapo brushes. This is one of my good ones that I got at Blick Art Supply, but it's still not the quality of these. These are very nice brushes. I think they retail for like 46 bucks for the set, but you know, you got this little carrying case. So having a nice set of brushes that you don't mess up and use for matte medium and gluing things down and all that kind of stuff is nice. So I'm glad to have these. They have a good weight to them. I mean, that's a nice ferrule. Your metal part's called a ferrule, and that's very nice and tight on here, so it's going to hold the bristles in good. And the bristles are soft. They're not stiff, but they're still very thick. There's a lot of them. And then the handles are very, very nice as well. And these are the turquoise iris. This one's called the Assistant, and then this one's a little round, and it's called Tipsy. Here's a little angle brush. This one's called Little Edge. And this one's Filbert is what this shape is called, and that's called the Favorite, and this is a fan brush. Imagine that, huh? And it's called the Mascot. So we're going to see what we can do with those, but I'm probably, because this is a larger surface, going to start with this Assistant today. And I guess I could dampen it in some water before I get started. I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do on this piece with the colors. What I got out was some bright colors because it's a nice day out today, so I figured, you know what, let's just do some nice colors. I already have, you know what, I'm going to start with this. I already have the black gesso everywhere, so now underneath, and then I have this stuff glued on it. The option at this point is to leave that black down there and then go over the top with white gesso, since I'm going to use light colors over it, or go ahead with one coat of dark gesso over all of these things and then let that dry and come back with white over that, which is what I think I'm going to do. So you know what, I'm gonna, for the black gesso, I'm gonna go ahead and use that one of my cheap, well, this is not a cheap brush either. This is a very worn out one of my ones from Blick Art Supply. So if y'all are interested in any of those, just let me know and I'll get you a link. But my black gesso is very thick, so we're going to try to, and I'm going to not do these flowers yet until last because they're not dry yet. But I'm just putting a coat and getting down in between all the gears and keys, and I just love all those keys and things. When I was a little girl, we lived in a, you know, on a farm in the country, and these are what the keys looked like to our doors if we would have locked anything anyways. You didn't have to lock your doors back then. Nobody would disrespect someone else's home by breaking in our area. Everybody knew each other. But anyway, I was telling you about going to Hobby Lobby. So I stopped. I had to go to Lafayette, Louisiana to drop off some donations to an event that's for a nonprofit that my daughter works out. That they're having a big event, a fundraiser tomorrow. And so I brought some donations down there for a thing of DIY paint and some brushes and a meditation basket and one of my framed paintings and stuff like that, you know, for them to use as some of their giveaways and stuff like that. So on the way back, I live in a rural area and there's not a Hobby Lobby around here. So it's the closest one is an hour in each direction. So it was a 2-hour drive where I was going, an hour drive home, and 2-hour drive home, but halfway in between there was a Hobby Lobby, and you know, you can't pass up the chance to go to a Hobby Lobby if you hardly ever get to go. Like, I need some hardware for the buffet that I'm painting for my May class, and I'm going to see what else is on sale. And I was very shocked because I pulled up the ad on my phone. You know how you'll do to make sure you have your 40% off coupon, whoever shops without their coupon. And to see what was half price. And I called my husband. I'm going by Hobby Lobby. I need some hardware. If it's not 50% off, I'll still see if there's anything I like and come back when it is 50% off. But I got there, and it was 50% off. How odd is that? But I found a couple of pieces and then decided to use what's on there for the rest of it. And then I found a couple of really cute pieces, and I've dropped them off at work already, or I would show them to you. And I had to get some ribbon for my daughter. She's a seamstress. And so I got that. And I'm like, I would really, really wish I could have a great big canvas to paint on. You know, something that just is so huge and freeing that I don't even know what I would paint on it. That huge. And it's sitting right behind me. I wish I could lift up the camera and just show you. This thing is huge. It's 36 by 48. So it's 3 foot by 4 foot. And it's regularly $69.99, and I would never pay $69.99. The big canvases I've used before, I've bought at Michael's at 70% off, but they were 50% off yesterday at Hobby Lobby, and I'm like, you know what, 35 bucks. Can I spend 35 bucks on myself to do a piece of art just because I want to? And the answer was no, but then I did it anyways. But I'm like, you know what, and these things, when you get those kind of canvases, they're so well made, you know, they're not like the canvases that we get at, you know, even I haven't ordered this kind because the shipping would be too high, because it's an oversized charge, but I get most of my canvases from Blick, but I get them when they're 70% off. I'm just dabbing inside these flowers now. I still don't want to move them around because I know that matte medium is probably not completely dry. But anyway, I'm like, you know, this is what real artists have. And I see all these gorgeous, beautiful paintings that people do. And I'm like, man, you know, they're the real deal. That, you know, I'm just a piddler. And these people are the real deal. And they get to do these huge, you know, a rose as big as my table here, you know, and some kind of scene on that, and I just think they're so beautiful, and I'm like, maybe I could have something like that for myself. I've bought a huge canvas before for a couple of different projects. The one that I did, the speed video thing of roses for our guest room, that was a big old canvas like this, maybe not quite this big, but it was only, you know, maybe a half an inch thick. Well, this canvas that I got is called their Grander Collection. It's like, let's see if it even says, it's, it don't say, it's gallery wrap, but I think it's like 1.5 inches. And the boards that are behind this thing are 2 inches, you know, wide and thick each. It's huge, it's massive, and it's sturdy, and it's, you know, not gonna warp and bend and fall apart. It's such an impressive canvas, and I really thought, you know, I'm acting like a bigwig here, getting myself this big old fancy thing. But you know, this is what you know, the artists who can do what they want to do. So I get up to the front and paying for my stuff, and the cashier at Hobby Lobby says, "Oh my goodness, as long as I've worked here, I've never seen anybody buy one of those before." So sometimes we get stuff in our head and we think, you know, people who are better than us get to use tools that are better than us and things like that. And it's not true. It's all up in our head. Okay. And the reason I put the black, I'm not a big, Sandra, that's heavy gesso in black. And what gesso does is sort of prime the surface to get it ready for paint. And I'm putting it on first. I had one layer on there before I ever glued anything down for the depth, so it would be, you know, underneath all this, so that it would be in the crevices and all that kind of stuff. And I went all around the edges with it and all that just to get one layer on, but that it sort of gives it that little bit of a gritty surface that prepares it to take and hold paint. So it's just like, you know, white gesso that we use for all kinds of stuff. This one is just a black gesso. And it's by Art Basics. And I really believe that there's an artist, a mixed media artist named Finnebear. And she does some really, really awesome mixed media stuff. And I think that she's the one who created the formula for this. And that Art Basics, you know, sells her line. I don't know why it doesn't have her name on it, but it just says Art Basics. Now I'm picking it up. I don't know if y'all can see this, but under there's some areas that I missed, and all I did was just sort of dip my brush down in some water to activate, because the gesso is very thick, what's on there, to be able to use it all and then get it into these crevices that I couldn't see with it straight up and down. But the black gesso prepares, you know, just like a primed canvas. It prepares your surface to take and hold paint, just like the white gesso does. It just gives it, when you're doing mixed media, it gives it the depth underneath of making things look old. Okay, so out with that. Let's see if I can dry it just a tad, especially around these flowers. Is what I'm going to do next, is put a coat of white gesso over this black gesso so that it will take my lighter colors that I've decided to use better and lighten things up a little bit. And I don't want it to just get muddy and turn gray. And I could do this with white paint. And I did get out white paint for that reason. But I may as well use the gesso. You can see it drying pretty quick. Gesso dries really quick. Mostly just worried about it in those flowers because, you know, it could get ooey gooey on there to where it would dry faster on these other surfaces. But because it does dry faster, a little bit faster than the paint, I'm going to go ahead and do white gesso for my next layer. I'm not wanting, a lot of times when I do the mixed media stuff like this, I'm wanting it to look old and aged and, you know, brassy and patinaed and all that at the end, but that's not what I'm going for this time. So, we'll see if I do get what I'm going for. Okay, now I'm grabbing my new turquoise iris brush. I can't say it. Turquoise iris. And I have a palette pad paper thing here, and that's what I have here sitting to the side that I'm going to be pouring my paint and stuff on to use. And sometimes I have a wet palette that I absolutely love, and of course it's, you know, at my work studio, and I'm at the home studio today, so I don't have it with me, and I don't have two of everything. And a lot of times I use paper plates and stuff like this, but I got these palette pads. I got a couple of them, and let me show you if you haven't paid attention to one before, at like the markdown thing at, can you see that? I don't want to mash what I've got in there. Well, I did, look. At Hobby Lobby one time, like, you know, 70% off or something when they were discontinuing this type or whatever. So I'm like, well, could use that, and now I love it. I use it quite a bit. Okay, I'm going on top of the black, but I'm not going evenly, and it is making some gray, but that's still okay. Evenly or way deep in there or anything like that. I'm just going to splash some on here and there and get her done. Enjoy the process. This is one of those things where you can just, you know, let your paintbrush go and let your mind go and not be worrying, oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? Is this going to be pretty? Are people going to like it? This is one of those times where it can be relaxing and you really don't give a big hoot what anybody thinks about it, which should be what you do about every piece, but a lot of us want people to like our stuff. That's human nature. It's almost, this, you know, this is not thin or thick, but it's almost like dry brush, and I'm kind of just going over the top with it and going back and forth and not trying to get deep down into the surface. But it's okay if a big clod gets in there, and it does. See how much texture the flowers give to it? That's awesome, isn't it? Going to turn it around. Same thing as when you're painting a canvas. Remember that it's easier to pick your piece up and turn it around than figure out how to contort your arm in every different direction trying to get something. Just move the piece. I love the way that looks. Love it. And I'm going to just slop some of this on the sides as well. I can turn it around to where y'all can see it. I don't even know if they still sell cigars. I don't smoke. I did smoke years ago. I've been quit since 2001. But I smoked for 30 years before that. But I don't go in convenience stores either. So, that's where I used to, my family owned convenience stores when I was a kid. And so that's how I knew about selling cigars to begin with. But, I don't know if they still sell them. I'm assuming that they do. I'm assuming it's still a thing for some guys. I don't know, you know, because people used to smoke in public when I was young. You don't do that anymore, so you don't have to sit around with some old guy with his stinky cigar at the next table. That's kind of cool. There's some kind of numbers that were apparently imprinted into the side of the box, and they're still showing through now, so hopefully that'll still show when I get the color on it too. When this is done, I'll probably just paint the bottom black or white. I've not done anything to the bottom yet. Did the same thing here with some of the some of the wording showing through. So I'm hoping it stays showing through. Hold on one second. Alexa, play royalty-free music. My music went off. I told her to play it for 2 hours. Thank you, Becky. And yeah, I'm one of those people that have an Amazon device listening to everything I do every day. But you know what? She reads me audiobooks in the mornings when I'm getting dressed. Tells me the weather when I'm wondering about it. So I'm going to keep going. It's not like I have any big secrets going on around here anyway, that if somebody's sitting at Amazon listening, they gonna be bored to death listening to what's going on at my house. Okay, that I like that. Well, I'm gonna dry just a little bit, but remember the Just So dries so fast. That's why we chose it instead of white paint. Put the brush in there. That brush held a lot, and I didn't have to push down real hard to pull it through there. I'm impressed with that. Big old clump right there. I try not to do stuff that's going to take a long time to dry, but you know, I started this just as something for me. It wasn't something I was going to share on the page. And I'm like, maybe somebody else has some old cigar boxes and they want to sit around and decorate theirs with me. Why not share? Sharing is always fun. I'm mostly going to be working on the top at this point, so I'm not going to worry too much about the sides yet. I think I'm mostly going to be working on top. Now you never can tell, since this is sort of just a free-flowing, do whatever you want to when your brush hits the not canvas, the project. You could come back. You know what would have looked really cute in here? This is, you know, they sell really fancy picture frames. I've got a bunch of them actually in my box right there that I looked at. But this is a frame that I got at the Dollar Tree a couple of years ago. I was going to hang framed pictures on my Christmas tree at Christmas time. And I bought these. I have several different shapes of them. Of these frames there, they're, you know, kind of a silver color. And I was going to decorate them up and put, like, old pictures in them and do a vintage Christmas tree. And then I didn't. So what I did was just tear this part off the back. And this is the part that was in there to be for the picture. So, you know, it comes from the Dollar Tree. It doesn't have glass, but it does have a piece of acrylic stuff there. And I just took all that off, tore off the back of it, and glued it down. And these gears and things like this, and there's buttons on here too, and these keys. Some of that stuff I get at like the Scrapbook Expo and scrapbook conventions and stuff like that. But sometimes I just order it on Amazon, and it comes from wherever for $3 for, you know, a little bag of it. And, you know, you're waiting on it to get here from, you know, no telling where. But, you know, generally you're not in a hurry for something like that, or you would go searching for it locally, which is, you know, what I would prefer. But I don't know a place locally to get anything like that. So, generally order it online or get it at a Scrapbook Expo or something like that, and then just save them in my Trinket boxes like this. This is still very wet. Got it on my finger. And save it in my Trinket boxes like that. And, you know, I have organized boxes of them, of course. I've got one here where I got a bunch of these marked down at Walmart one time. And I keep wooden ones in one and metal ones in one and buttons in one and just little things that I find. These are cute, but I did order these online, and I was disappointed when I got them because apparently they're all for jewelry making, and they all have a little like hook on the top, and So I don't hardly want to use them with the hook on top for these projects. But anyway, so those are nice to have too. But this is definitely more special. More special. Alexa went off again. We're just going to ignore her, I suppose. Okay, I'm going to use that same brush, get the gesso off of it. And my little cup of water over here. I've used this, FYI, the same plastic cup that's in here for probably 2 years. But this is a candle holder that I just found that I liked. And it's very sturdy. And my cup fits right in there. And I keep that on my table. That way I'm not accidentally knocking over my cup of water. So, and it's cute. It's cute sitting there. But I'm glad to have it. Okay, I think it's dry enough in most areas. I'm going to go with the darker color on bottom, and probably out of all these colors here, this medium violet. This is a Blick acrylic. That's going to be the darkest that I have out. And put it on first. Squeeze a little out on my palette. And I can't tell how much of... Well, I guess you can see a good bit of it. That y'all can see. But this is a good, thick, heavy body paint. And if anybody's interested in that, I'll put a link on that. I have an affiliate link for Blick Art Supply. I've used them for years and years. They're my favorite paints. I love them because you get a good, heavy body paint. When you compare that to the, 99-cent paints you get at Walmart, if I was to just put one little squirt of this and mix it with water everywhere, I would have that paint. But then... there's no way to really thicken that up unless you buy a tube of some kind of medium to add to it. And, that's a lot of work. So I like buying the colors that I like in this heavier body. The Blick is just as good as the Golden and the Liquitex, way cheaper. And then you can make it, as thin as watercolor or have it thick enough to where you can glob it on and it'll stand up like that if you wanted. I love these paints. So with this particular coat, I'm not going to add much water or anything. I'm wanting it to go on pretty thick. And I'm not worrying about, I'm going this way and that way, like on your canvas or if you're painting furniture, I guess I should say. You're really, really worried about all of your lines being straight and everything going in the same direction. You don't have to worry about that when you're doing a mixed media project or this type of thing. Just get it on there. You can make X's with it and do it like this. You can do to where it'll have a texture like that. Anything you want to is going to look good, and anything you do, anybody besides you who sees it is going to think you did it that way on purpose. You knew how and intended it. When an accident happens that turns out good, they'll think you're a genius. And all you did was have a little fun and get the paint on there. Purple is my favorite color, so it's always going to be the basis for everything. The thing about acrylics is, because you could be thinking at this time, well, that's not going to make much sense to be putting the lighter colors like pink, light yellow, and all that, thank you, April, over the top of the darker purple. But with these paints, they're going to... this yellow will cover up this purple because that's the way acrylic paints work. Now I'm going to thin it out a little bit. I'm just dipping my brush in some water and coming back down here in my paint to thin it out a little bit because I'm going to go ahead and put this purple around the edges so that to give that a chance to dry a little bit. But I forgot what I was talking about. But yeah, the next layer will cover up this layer. That's what I absolutely love about acrylics. It's not like, and they dry so fast. With oil painting, I'm sure, a lot of artists are wonderful oil painters. A lot of artists think, like I think a little bit, real artists are people who use... oil paints and, can paint a picture of a pear sitting on a table next to a pitcher of water and look all wonderful, and that is a type of art. But this is also a type of art. And that oil paint, you can't put the next layer over until the first layer dries, or it's going to blend. And we could do that with this as well, and blend if we wanted to blend. But when you use acrylics, they dry faster, and one of the benefits is that I can put yellow on top of purple and not worry about it, because it'll still be yellow. This is so therapeutic to me. I really, really enjoy this kind of painting, because they're really, when you're doing a mixed media type thing, there can't be a whole lot of expectations, you know, because you just have no idea how it's going to turn out. If I wanted at this point, I could lightly whitewash over it, take my white paint, which I get instead of a tube, I get this great big container of it, because I use a lot of it, and it's cheaper per ounce or whatever that way. I could lightly, you know, sort of whitewash over it like a glaze, like a dry brush over it to lighten it up a little bit. I could do any of that I wanted to at this point. I don't want to do any of it, so at this, right this second, could change my mind. The paint doesn't dry quite as fast as the gesso did, and I kind of don't mind if it blends a little bit, but I do want to dry it a little, because I don't want it all blended. I want some of the next color, which will probably be a teal, to go right on top of it. Okay, now I'm gonna use the filbert brush, just because it's a little bit smaller. And what did I say I was gonna do? I have two teals here. I have a turquoise green, and a cobalt teal, and I like the cobalt teal, the blue teal, better than the green teal right this second. I'm going to squirt a little on my thing. I'm not using quite as much of this, because I'm just going to touch over some areas. I would like some of this on the flowers. You know, if at some point when you're doing this, you can think, oh, good grief, that's getting gaudy, you can always whitewash over the whole dang thing at the end, too, if it feels that way, and then tone it all down. So at this point, just continue to have fun, and don't worry about, you know, it's one of those things where it's like darkest before the dawn. Your paintings get ugly before they get beautiful. There's going to be a time in here where if you're not enjoying the process and you're starting to critique yourself, that you may go, what am I doing? It looked just fine. Now why did I do that? And don't. Tell your mind, get that out of there. I'm having fun. I'm not trying to make something that's classically beautiful to anyone else. I'm trying to make something that I enjoy. If I don't want to, nobody will ever see it. This is my second favorite color, so no wonder it comes on next. I'm just kind of getting in the crevices and around the edges inside of here. May do that around the edge of this frame too. Thank you, Joy. I appreciate that. Okay, Joy, thank you. Hey. Okay. I'm going to keep this closer to, you know, what is our centerpiece, and I'm not going to put the teal on everything. And you don't, just because you get one bit of a gear doesn't mean you have to do the whole gear or button or key. I think that's all I'm going to do in the teal. Rinse my brush. And I guess I'll do this turquoise green because I got it out, right? It's here, asking to be a part of the project. I'm going to go right back with the filbert on that one. And it's not much, and I'm putting a decent amount of water in this because that one is actually even a little bit thicker. And sometimes depending on the pigments that they use in there, that's why they're, you know, they're different. You may wonder if you, like all these four are the same size, but I may have paid $3, $4, $5, $7 for them. It depends on the cost of the pigments that go in them as well as, you know, where the companies get the prices for their paints. They're not just making them up and charging more for some than others. Just coming off and going in some of these same sort of teal areas. This is actually very pretty compared to the blue teal. And I have a little bit of both of these left on my palette, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my bigger brush back out and slather a little of it on these sides. Use it up. And going back to my assistant brush. I'm going to go with the lighter one first, just like I did on top, because that seemed to look good. Just going to put a little. Not worried about how much or where. And then I'm not even going to rinse off my brush. I'm just going to go ahead and dip right in. Well, it needs thinning a little. Dip my brush in the water a little bit and grab some of this and do the same thing. I'm so excited to do something with that giant canvas. Just look, this left a big clump right there because it's the paint's thick and it thin out that part. I'm just going to leave it and let it give a little bit of texture. I'm gonna, and it's okay to mix your gesso in with your paint. I'm gonna lighten this up just a tad and mix some of this white gesso in with this turquoise green to lighten up like right through here. Anyways, I don't know whether to do a landscape, a big flower, a chicken on a bicycle, you know, the kind of things that I'm known for. Whether to do something mixed media and fun, something abstract. I just want to just have fun with it. Okay, here's what we have left. We've used that, and that. Okay, we have left yellow, green, cad orange hue, cad yellow light, and light portrait pink. Orange and purple are across the color wheel from each other, but I don't know if I want to put orange on here after all of that teal. I'm going to save that till last. And I'm going to go right now then with the yellow green, because I know I'm going to use yellow in here because I want that to be the lightest area and be the sort of focal point. It's not going to take very much of this one, so I'm just squirting out a little bit. And go back and get the filbert brush. Or, you know what, I'm going to get, go ahead and do the angle brush. And that just has a little angle on it if you wanted to do a straight line or things like that. This is the perfect brush for that. And I'm going to use it kind of outline some of these, I think. That feels like it would be fun. And it doesn't matter which brush you use or anything like that for any of it. Just have a good time with whatever. Sometimes I just come in whenever I'm doing something, you know, sort of in this kind of creative fashion and just grab a handful of brushes out of my brush container, and I don't pay attention to which ones I get, and I'll just let it flow and use whatever brush I have to keep from planning it out too much. Because I feel like sometimes if you plan things out too much, that takes a, you know, a little something away from it. I'm kind of getting away from here. I've got a lot of that in there now. These hearts are cute. Got 3 more colors left maybe. I'm going to go ahead and sort of frame this out with this. Sometimes whenever you feel like, I don't know what to do, I feel like it needs something, nothing sort of tying it in together. If you just take whatever color paint you want to, black, white, or in my case, yellow, green, just sort of create a frame around the edges. I like it to be sort of rough and textured, and that sort of ties everything in together. I posted a new post a few minutes ago for those who are not getting notifications but wish they would get notifications whenever I get ready to do a live video. And the picture just says like Facebook Live. And all you have to do is go in the comments and comment the word yes. And that should let what's called a bot, my bot, know that you want to be notified. So whenever I go in there, it's called mini chat for any of you that have a business and are wondering about that. It's called mini chat, which is a program that hooks up to your Facebook. And before I go live, I go to mini chat and say, hey, I'm fixing to go live. And they broadcast that out to everybody who's joined that list. And then I always write, you know, what sort of topic that I'm about to do my live on, so you can look at it. And if I'm fixing to do a furniture painting and you're not interested in furniture painting, then you can blow it off. But if you are interested in furniture painting, you're like, oh, there it is. You know, I'm going to catch this one live this time. And, you know, you can ignore it, or you can be, you know that, hey, I'm going to take a minute and go watch the live, or hey, I'll catch it on the replay later, or whatever. But, you know, those are sort of free notifications if you want them. Just look for that Facebook Live picture and just go type the word yes under there, and then it'll send you a thing to confirm that you really meant to get notified. And that's all you got to do. Confirm that, and then next thing you know, when there's a live, you can look and see if you want to look at it or not. Okay, I'm going to grab out the Cad Yellow Light I use a lot of this one. I have 3 different yellows that I use a lot of. And they are Cad Yellow Medium, which is more of a sort of just a medium regular yellow. This light one is almost a neon yellow. And the Cad Yellow Deep Hue is almost a deep orangey yellow. And when they say hue at the end, that's a deeper pigmented paint, but it's also cheaper than if I had done the Cad Yellow Deep without it saying hue at the end. So that really doesn't matter to me. It's still awesome paint. So sometimes I get the ones that say hue whenever I want a bigger tube of it. So anyways, I chose this brighter one today because this is going to be bright. But those are my 3 favorite yellows. I have on my website, which is sisterhoodofthetravelingbrush.com, there's a little opt-in thing. It used to be a pop-up. I don't know what happened to it. It's not a pop-up anymore. But I'm trying to decide which brush. I'm going to go back to that Filbert. There's a little opt-in, and that gives you my 75 favorite paint colors that, you know, I believe everybody should have in their arsenal. Not that I have 75 of these, but they're, you know, some of those are, you know, furniture paints, canvas paints, acrylic paints, and things like that. But there's, you know, the top 75 colors that are used the most. But a lot of those, you can just get your primary colors in a black and a white and make all those. You don't have to buy these. But some of these, you know, I use so often, it saves me a lot of time to have them. Okay, this is very bright. I don't know that I shouldn't mix it with a little bit of the gesso over there, but I'm not going to. Was my intention of this little area shining bright. Hear my husband outside mowing. It's that time of the year again. I'm thinking about what I'm thinking right now as I'm doing this is my light is shining this way. It's focused right here, but like the outer glow of it is coming this way. Or, oh, I have a new idea. That is still where my light's coming from. Let me put that. There you go. Get that out of my mind. But, and I don't know if this will work or not. This is really thick. Let me see if I can thin it out a little bit. What if we, let me do this with a liner brush. That's, well, this is not a liner. It's round, but it's small enough to be used like a liner. You know, the star look. Sort of like a, I can't draw a straight line if I want to. Sort of like it's glowing out of there, like the midnight star. Maybe, maybe not. That's okay. Okay, want it to have a little bit of a glow. Like that, and then this is the way we had it coming, so. I'm going to put on another layer, thicken it up a little bit. Turn your canvas, even if it's not a canvas. This ray of yellow light's zooming through. Hitting all the high points. I'm going to, just like we did at the top with framing it out, I'm going to frame out the top and the bottom and the corners with this yellow, just to bring a little brightness to it. See? My water's getting muddy over there, but it's going to be okay. And it doesn't matter that that's thicker. This has been a lot of fun. I'm trying to hold my brush, you know, sideways like this, like that. I pulled that straight. That's not the method that I had been using. I'm going to try to smear that like that now because of that. I want to hold it and I'm just catch those edges like this, not like this, like this. Getting low on yellow. I like it like that. I love the feeling when I use up all the paint on my palette. It's okay if a little goes through the middle. Okay, now we are, let's see, that's the bottom, there's the top. We're at the point I'm going to do some white to just sort of dust back over it at the end, but I want to dry this yellow a little bit. And I feel like it's too much, so we're fixing to whitewash just a little, on the top at least. I think most of the layers are going to be dry with the exception of the yellow, and it's going to be okay if a little bit of the yellow gets in with the white because that also is, you know, a pale color that'll look good. Probably going to use the fan brush for that. This is not what I would normally use the fan brush for. I normally use my fan brush for making like little wisps of grass and things like that on paintings, but it's the only one that I haven't already dipped in my in my cup of now muddy water from the black gesso. So we're going to multi-purpose it today. Wish I had a mister bottle with some water in it, but I don't. I'm just going to barely dampen it in there and get some white. Of course, I can't squeeze the white out because it's down in here, but I'm not going to get much. And I don't know where my mister bottle is. I very seldom sit down here without having that. I just packed up just boxes and boxes of paint that I've brought here from work back to take to the work studio. So it's probably in the back of my car. I got a little bit of water that I'm drinking, and that's the water I'm going to pour on my white. Just a drop or two. That's way more than a drop or two. It'll be all right. But I'm going to thin out my white so that I'm not covering up everything with it. I'm not wanting that to spill out on my floor. There we go. But this is very thin now. Thicker than watercolor, but definitely way thinner than, you know, like those cheap acrylics from the 99-cent stuff. Okay, first place I want to go is here. Somebody's walking up. Hold on just a minute. I don't know if the door is locked. I'm on a live.
Okay.
It's only going to take me just a second and I'm going to be done. Just give me 1 second. I think I hear my daughter out there, and it's Easter weekend, so we're getting ready for our Easter celebration tomorrow, which will be at a local lake, Toledo Bend Lake. If you're interested in that, I actually have a blog post about Toledo Bend, and we love to go there on my blog, sisterhoodofthetravelingbrush.com. But, okay, now see how it's lightening up, and you can see how I'm having to kind of go back over it because it's thin. But I'm just hitting it here and there just to lighten it up, and I love it. I think it's exactly what I wanted it to be. I appreciate you joining me today, and if you have a trinket box that you fix up, or if you do a mixed media project based on this, I would love for you to share it with me. It's very inspirational when we share our art with each other, I think. I love it so much, so I really would love to see. I'm not going to do the sides, and you can still see some of those words. Remember, I mentioned the words showing through the paint, so I'm very excited about that on my cigar box, and I think it turned out great, and I'm going to hide all kinds of really cool goodies in here, like buttons. Bye.